thing with Biden is just, he's like a puppet president. The military is in charge. It's going to be like Myanmar, what's happening in Myanmar. The military is doing their own investigation, and at the right time, they're going to be restoring the republic with Trump as president.
What happens when we look for commonalities amongst Americans rather than points of division? Karen Nussbaum, the founding director of Working America, penned a piece in Jacobin magazine about finding commonality amongst working class Americans, commonality that transcends political polarization and focuses on issues rather than parties. Hi, I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ. Thanks for joining me. In the piece, Nussbaum talks about her organization's successes in doing just that, by speaking to voters about issues that concern them rather than attempting to persuade them to vote for one side or another. Working America has been able to, quote, bridge the gap between those who follow politics closely and those who don't. And that gap is pretty wide. A study found that 80 to 85% of Americans either don't follow politics at all or only do so passively. And a lot of the political noise we hear comes from those on either side of that gap. The argument is that by focusing on issues, things that tangibly affect the lives of everyday Americans, we can better build support around movements and ideas, solutions, and innovations. When you consider how many standalone issues have bipartisan support amongst Americans, it's easy to see why this would be an effective mechanism for change. A study out of the University of Maryland found strong bipartisan support for issues surrounding healthcare and Medicare, taxation, the environment, even immigration. Yet voters in this country only have two parties to choose from at the polls. The way today's modern American political parties are set up goes beyond big or small government. We've made morality and human decency partisan rather than innate, and we argue with one another over things that most Americans simply aren't concerned with.
The Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
To this point, Nussbaum says, millions of Americans worry more about paying the rent or medical bills than what's on cable news. You need the basics in your life to have the resilience to engage in politics. People have real-world problems, and they need and want solutions. They deserve solutions however they come about and wherever from. For most of the people watching this right now, I think it's safe to say that we are amongst those people who tend to pay more attention to politics, but we can be unforgiving and unsympathetic to those who aren't as well informed about topics that are still considered to be quite niche, whether or not we see them that way anymore. There's also the issue of how quickly news travels these days, literally faster than ever before in human history. I mean, I'm a pretty solid millennial. I was born in '88, and I had to do research papers in the library with books. When the internet became a thing, we had to learn how to use it and use it effectively. With Gen Z, they were born into that. They're used to ideas moving over great distances at incredible speeds. But with the boon that social media has given us over just the past 2 decades, I don't need to tell you that it's created some real problems. Social media actively works to push us further and further in one direction or another, a self-preserving feedback loop that can't exist without our likes, shares, and comments. It's no surprise that there are so many headlines about people taking breaks from social media or just getting off of it entirely. As a result, we now tend to exist within silos, to the extent that we can forget that life, most of life, exists outside of these silos. Just think about any time you've accidentally stumbled across something and then immediately fell into a rabbit hole finding a community where you didn't even know one existed. I mean, think about your favorite YouTuber. They probably have millions of subscribers on their channel. They've probably been involved in a scandal or two. But would the average person even look up if that YouTuber was behind them in line at Starbucks? Whenever people publicly falter because they don't quite understand something that's still considered to be a modern idea, we say it's unacceptable for them to be so ill-informed in this day and age. I mean, sure, we can call it unacceptable, but we're going to have to accept it a little bit before we can even hope to be effective or persuasive with them. We have to meet people where they are and not where we want them to be. And I know, you've got to practice what you preach. Do I do this all the time? No. Am I extra judgmental of people that I don't like, or if I'm in a bad mood? Yes, of course, it happens. But whatever, you learn, you grow, you try to be better next time, and you try to apply what you learned from your experiences in a more constructive way going forward.